Well, we have another acronym in state government that we're going to talk about right now. The acronym is BUILD, B-U-I-L-D, and Governor Spencer Cox, Adam, creating it's called a new coordinating council. And what this is like building a path to a brighter Utah, a brighter future for Utah. And I think a lot of people want to know or have opinions, I will say, about what would create a brighter Utah for them. So in a few minutes, we're going to take live calls at 801-575-TALK. Like, what's that one thing that you want to see the state get together on and fix or do so you feel like there's a brighter hope for the future for your family? Adam Gardner, former host of Inside Sources in the afternoon, also a political analyst and a lobbyist here in the state of Utah. What would make for a brighter future for you and your family?
Well, I think he kind of hit the nail on the head on this one. Growth really is kind of tangential to everything we do in the state. You talk about sitting in traffic,
yes,
getting home after a long work day or getting to work. What happens if there is I was going to Salt Lake last night, and there was an accident on Mountain View corridor, so no traffic on Mountain View at all, and diverting. They shut the entire road down. So it's like, where do you go from here? How do we manage growth and make sure that as we have to build 35,000 new homes, that there is enough water and traffic management and public safety? How do we manage that growth? Because I think a lot of people are really scared. We talked in a couple segments ago about the NIMBYism. You mentioned that, not in my backyard.
We're talking about home building in Utah, and they're having a hard time, I would say a hard time, getting this first-time home buyer program really rooted, because there's 5,000 first-time homes that have been built under the governor's other initiative for first-time homes, and his goal is 35,000. So we're talking about
that's
NIMBYism.
A big goal.
Yeah.
And how do you incentivize developers to build these homes, these first-time homes, when they can make more by building a mansion? Get
residents in the area on board, so they're not at city council meetings.
How do you message that? And I think that the governor has taken an important step here, creating the Build Coordinating Council. Now, this is going to be led. It's a long-term planning in the state, so it should outlast Governor Cox. When he's done, someone else is going to have to pick up the torch on this and coordinate for years to come. But it's going to be led by Laura Hansen, who is the state planning coordinator and senior advisor to the governor. She is super smart, extremely capable, and I'm in awe every time I hear her talk about planning, because it's just way over my head and it's things I haven't thought about. So I think they're in capable hands with her leading it, but it's going to have a bunch of different folks from all facets of state and local governments involved to figure out, how do we do this better?
BUILD stands for Blueprint for Utah's Infrastructure, Land, and Development. There will not be a quiz on that later, but just in general, so you understand, BUILD stands for Blueprint for Utah's Infrastructure, Land, and Development. And to your point, Department of Public Safety will be involved, Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Quality, like Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce, Utah Association of Counties. And I also understand that they're going to have these meetings that are open to the public. I'll be curious to see how many residents show up and voice their.
Is this something you would show up to?
Well, as I'm thinking about retirement, which happens as of next Friday, I wonder if I would be. One of my big concerns, if I did show up to one of these meetings, is I need an east-west route.
Yeah. How do you get off I-15 and get to your house?
Well, I was thinking about this the other day. I get off at 106 South, and sometimes maybe my better bet is 114 South, and then I head west. And then yesterday I left Broadcast House at about 4:15, which is kind of late for me. But I got stuck in traffic, and I took maps told me to take all of these back roads. So I don't know. I ended up.
Isn't it crazy?
I ended up at your house. I
was
on 32nd West. Yes.
And you know where you're going. You know how to get home, and we still have to use maps because the route could change daily.
I-215 really worked well in the 90s, and I keep thinking we needed an I-315 and an I-415. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I understand, but I think we have to lean into the fact that growth is going to continue happening, we need to. I'd like to spend less time in traffic. I'd like to spend less than I think it said it was going to take me an hour to get home to South Jordan last night.
That's crazy.
In what Utah world am I living that the map says I have 4.5 more miles to go and that I will be there in 26 more minutes? It's Utah. The other thing I would say is I think, and in a moment we're going to speak with Steve Waltrip, who is kind of the senior advisor for housing for the governor, because I know there's a lot on people's minds for a bright Utah. If they could get into a home, they want to get into a home. There just aren't the affordable homes to live in. But I want to talk about, before we get there, Adam, if you'll just indulge me for a moment, I want to talk about, I don't know what the governor's intention is with the Department of Public Safety being on this new council, but I would say that crime and growing crime is a big factor in the lives of Utah families. And I see this posted quite frequently. I'm reminded of this when I see in our community Facebook page out in Daybreak, which has thousands and thousands of people on this page. They're posting regularly about hey, somebody broke into my car overnight. My car's stolen. There's somebody that's knocking on doors. He seems suspicious, that kind of thing. And I think those are the kinds of things that are also going to be important for our future for addressing those issues for quality of life. They seem small, but for some people, that's it makes them feel unsafe. And I think we bring more residents to the state. We want residents to continue to feel like we felt in the 90s, maybe.
Yeah, safe, and you're taken care of, and we're paying attention.
Responsive.
And you found some great comments on the KSL.com article. A lot of these, it's social media, so a lot of them are, we hate this and we hate this, but you found some real gems.
So, right. And in a moment, we're going to take live calls, 801-575-TALK. What's your bright future in Utah look like? What's that one thing you want the state to focus on that will make your family happier, make it feel like it's a brighter place to live? 801-575-TALK. Let me bounce this one off you. Does that future include good-paying jobs and affordable housing? There's the housing component again, but what about the affordable jobs, Adam?
Yeah, it's one of the comments on KSL kind of asks that question and says, even if we have housing, are there jobs available? And I think that the state has kind of done it in the past in reverse. We've focused so much on getting companies from all over the country and the world to move here to Utah. And so we've got the high-paying jobs and then nowhere for them to live. And so we're trying to reverse that trend and keep those jobs that we have here without them leaving, but also get them more housing. It's a hard trend to figure out. And what are the right levers to pull to make sure we do the right things?
Yeah, we grabbed this story off of KSL.com, and it's talking about the governor's newer task force called BUILD, Blueprint for Utah's Infrastructure, Land, and Development. And he wants to know what it's going to take to make Utah, brighter in the future. This commenter on that article, I pulled this comment. This person said he should start with 3 lanes or more out of Salt Lake City going west on I-80. So you want 3 lanes to get into Tooele County, it sounds like.
Yeah, and 3 lanes to St. George. Because even going to St. George used to not be a big thing, and now it's there's a lot of traffic, especially if you're coming home from St. George on a weekend or.
And Tooele County can offer more affordable housing too.
Right.
So that might open up a window for more people to live out there.
And how do we get them water out there?
Get them water. Yeah. And then this commenter said, I'll take a positive slant on this. I'm a lifetime resident of Utah and have witnessed all the change. Change is the only constant, whether for good or worse, and population will continue to grow. And I think we have to lean into that. We've seen that, one of the fastest growing states in the nation. And I people want to move here. They want to move here.
What about public transit? Is that the next
I've had a
solution?
hard time with that. That's a great question. I've had a hard time with that because of the time it takes, even though it can sit in traffic for quite some time and be frustrated.
Sure.
It takes me an hour, sometimes longer, to take tracks from South Jordan to downtown Salt Lake City. Maybe there needs to be more public transit and more options.
And it seems like people are riding it more. UTA reports it's 20% growth year over year on public transit, which is huge. They moved 11 times the population of the state of Utah on buses and trains and tracks.
Didn't know that.
And so the more they continue to grow, the more, and especially the younger generation than me, 18 to 35, they're using public transportation and they want those types of options. And it seems to me like if we have this council, that the state will want to invest and make it grow, make it quicker from South Jordan to downtown.
Steve Waldrop, who's the senior advisor for housing up at the governor's office. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
We've been talking pretty heavily this morning about first-time home buyers and the governor's, pitch to get more first-time home options built across the state. I would imagine that this does play heavily into a brighter future, if you will, for a lot of Utah families, because if they can't afford their first-time home, then they're going to be maybe forever renters. Might appeal to some, but not all.
Yeah, absolutely right. We've got the American dream that has always been a thing for us. And I was talking with one of our mayors just this morning about how when we were growing up, we were in high school and we would think, oh yeah, well, I guess at some point I'll get married, I'll get a job, I'll have a family, and I'll buy a house. And that was just the thing that you expected. That was part of the deal that we kind of make in our society. And now if you talk to high school kids, I talked to a few of our interns today, and 2/3 of them are saying, yeah, I don't think I'll ever buy a home. I don't think I'll ever be able to afford to buy a home. Yeah. And it's, that's a small sample, but I think if you go, as I have, to college campuses and talk to college kids and talk to high school kids, they know about this issue. And there's a sense of betrayal in those generations about, well, I can't do it here. I have to go to Tennessee or Ohio or Texas or somewhere else where I can create what I have always thought that I, was going to be promised.
Okay, this is going to sound maybe out of left field, but I've seen a lot of comments. We're talking about the new build commission, the council that's going to be put together, which I think is a great idea. Last session, one of the more controversial bills was that came out at the end of the session was this Beehive Development Agency. And it got a lot of pushback. The bill died. They said they were going to hold on to it and maybe work through some of those issues during the interim. This is not related to that at all, is it?
No, it's completely different. So this build commission is just taking existing state departments, so executive level departments and kind of executive level adjacent participants, Utah Foundation, and making sure that each department is communicating with the other departments so that we're not doing a right hand, left hand thing where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. Somebody's building a road and we needed a water line in that road, and the road just got built and now it's next year and we got to tear up this brand new road to put a water line in. That's happening all over the state. And so really this is just a measure to increase the efficiency of the services that government is already providing. And we're already in all of these things, doing all of this work, and we'll be better at it if people are talking to one another. And so, I talked to the governor yesterday, and in the press conference, I think he said the same thing. I wanted to do this as an executive order so my team knew how important it was that we coordinate better as a team. And so this isn't creating any new powers. This isn't creating any new commissions. This is just making sure that the people who are doing the work already are taking seriously the obligation to be more efficient, more in touch with other departments that may have, that may be touching some of the things that they're doing.
We're talking live right now with the governor's senior advisor for housing, Steve Waldrop. He's on the line with us. And before we let you go, I want to get your perspective on this. I'm looking at these numbers in terms of new housing builds under, is it called the Family First, Utah Family First plan? Maybe I'm getting that one wrong, but to build these starter homes for families, Steve. And it looks like as of right now, there are 5,100 new starter homes that have been built since the governor initiated this push back in late 2023. His goal is to get to 35,000 new starter homes by 2028. In my view, it feels like we're behind as a state getting to that goal. What's your view?
Absolutely. So that number is the number of units that were delivered to market and sold in 2024. So the initiative started, January 1st of 2024, and that was the 5-year goal was 35,000. So that requires us to build 7,500 a year in order to hit that goal. And so last year, first year, we got 5,000. That's not terrible. That gives me some hope that as we, push the market, as we push developers, as we push cities to produce more mixed income and mixed value communities. So it's not all, we don't really want all starter homes in a block, and we don't really want all big homes. The best communities are where we have a mix of starter homes and move-up homes and final homes, and you have all of those blended together, and you create, opportunities for people to grow where they are. That's really what we're pushing. So the fact that we did 5,100 in the first year with kind of no on-ramp is really encouraging. But, since then, now we've got these headwinds with, construction cost increases and labor cost increases and, the potential of tariffs hitting home builders and interest rate concerns. I mean, this is a aspirational big reach goal to get to 35,000. I'm encouraged that we did as well as we did as a state. And, but we've got a long ways to go. I mean, we're looking at needing 10,000 this year, double what we did last year, just to keep pace. And that's really, really challenging, but we're working on it.
Okay, I have about 30 seconds left. I want to know, how is this coordinating council going to function?
It's really just going to be a group that gets together. The first meeting, I think, is July 22nd. There's nothing secretive about it. I think, we were just talking about it this morning, like, yeah, people want to come and listen. That's great. More involvement, the better. But it really is just to have transportation, talking to housing, talking to corrections, talking to human services, talking to welfare, just making sure that people know what other people are doing. So if there are areas where we can cooperate, where we can coordinate better and leverage the things that we're doing to make government more efficient, this is a great thing and wonderful. And everybody ought to be excited that we're actually going to do the things that we would hope we were doing all the time. And we're just going to do it better.
That was Steve Waldrip. Thanks so much, Steve, for being on the show. The governor's senior advisor for housing, Steve Waldrip, on to talk about the new Build Coordinating Council. Excited to see where that goes next.